Caracas, Venezuela, August 22, 2025. Inside the elliptical hall of Venezuela's national parliament, President Nicolás Maduro launched a blistering attack on Washington's latest military move. At issue was the deployment of 3 U.S. Navy warships just off Venezuela's coast. The United States has framed the operation as part of its ongoing campaign against drug trafficking in the Caribbean. But in Caracas, Maduro sees something far more dangerous, an attempt at regime change dressed in the language of law enforcement. In front of Venezuela's political and military leadership, the president called the mission illegal, warning that it violated the sovereignty not only of his country, but of the entire region. This is a matter of peace, of international law for Latin America and the Caribbean. Anyone who commits an act of aggression against a country in Latin America is attacking all countries, he declared. His remarks carried echoes of historic regional solidarity, invoking the idea that an attack on one is an attack on all, a deliberate reference to Latin America's tradition of collective defense. By his side, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez and top generals reinforced the government's message of unity between civilian and military institutions. Maduro then shifted from warning to rallying call, urging Venezuelans, regardless of political differences, to set aside disputes and stand together against what he described as a common external threat. Therefore, it is time to act courageously, to join forces, to unite the national will, to set aside minor or internal differences. It is time for Venezuela to speak with one voice, the voice of truth, of the homeland, of our right to peace, development and harmony, Maduro said. The scene underscored his effort to present a unified front. Top political allies, the military brass, and even the judiciary all visibly aligned with the presidential message. The chamber itself, adorned with paintings of Venezuela's independence battles, provided a symbolic backdrop. For Maduro, it was a reminder that foreign threats, whether from the 19th century or the 21st, demand national unity. Washington has long accused Caracas of enabling narcotics networks and destabilizing the region, but Maduro counters that US deployments are less about drugs and more about geopolitics, an attempt to pressure his government while bolstering US influence in the Caribbean. His fiery language reflected more than defiance. It also tapped into a wider anti-US sentiment in parts of Latin America, where foreign intervention has a long and controversial history. By declaring the naval operation an attack on all Latin America, Maduro sought to internationalize the issue, framing Venezuela not as an isolated target, but as the front line of a broader regional struggle. For his domestic audience, the message was clear. This is a fight not just for the government, but for the nation itself. For Washington and its allies, it was a reminder that Maduro will not concede legitimacy, no matter the pressure. The US has yet to respond directly to Maduro's speech, but analysts warn the rhetoric could deepen tensions, especially if Venezuelan forces move to confront American ships in disputed waters. As the president exited the chamber, applauded by loyalists and flanked by military leaders, the contrast was stark. Outside, US warships patrolled Caribbean waters. Inside, Maduro sought to transform that show of force into a rallying cry. His words, "This is a matter of peace," framed the confrontation not just as a Venezuelan issue, but as a test for Latin America's collective sovereignty.
Evangelio según San Mateo, capítulo 5, versículo 9, Jesús proclama.
25, 2:31.
Caracas, Venezuela, August 22, 2025. President Nicolás Maduro used a televised meeting inside the elliptical hall of Venezuela's national parliament to denounce Washington's latest military move. The United States has deployed 3 Navy warships off the coast of Venezuela, framing the operation as part of its ongoing campaign against drug trafficking in the Caribbean. But for Maduro, this was something far more serious, an illegal attempt at regime change, cloaked in the language of law enforcement. Flanked by top officials, including the heads of parliament, the Supreme Court, the Electoral Council and senior military officers, Maduro called the mission a direct violation of Venezuelan sovereignty and a threat to the wider region. He described the deployment as an attack not just on his country, but on all of Latin America. This is a matter of peace, of international law for Latin America and the Caribbean. Anyone who commits an act of aggression against a country in Latin America is attacking all countries, he declared, urging regional solidarity against what he framed as US aggression. The president's speech moved from defiance to a rallying call. He urged Venezuelans, regardless of political divisions, to set aside differences and present a united front against external threats. Therefore, it is time to act courageously, to join forces, to unite the national will, to set aside minor or internal differences. It is time for Venezuela to speak with one voice, the voice of truth, the voice of the homeland, the voice of our right to peace, development and harmony, Maduro said. The meeting underscored his effort to show national unity with political allies, the judiciary and military leadership, all visibly aligned with his message. Symbolic imagery of Venezuela's independence struggle hung in the hall, reinforcing the president's appeal to defend the nation's sovereignty.
Quien amenaza a uno, amenaza a todos los países. Así que es tiempo de valentía, de juntar el esfuerzo, de reunir la voluntad nacional, de poner a un lado diferencias menores o intestinas. Es tiempo de que Venezuela hable con una sola voz, la voz de la verdad, la voz de la patria, la voz del derecho que tenemos a la paz, al desarrollo, a la armonía,